Well, here I go. Another trip off to Adelaide this weekend. And Adelaide is the city of churches. It has the distinction of being the only major Australian capital city that had no convict involvement in its settlement and construction. So it was a free settlement from the beginning, and Adelaideite are incredibly proud of that fact. Anyway, we're going to have a good weekend, I think, and I'm looking forward to it. Last weekend, as I was heading out, I told you I wouldn't take any video of the trip down to Sydney. As I got on the plane, I took off. It was just so spectacularly beautiful that I felt I needed to do that. Such a beautiful winter's day that I thought I needed to add that in. Not sure if I'll do that again today, but we'll see. But anyway, we'll end up in Adelaide, and I'll see what we can find down there to prompt our walk in the garden for this week. See you soon. G'day, I'm Roland Hearn, and this is a walk in the garden. Get a load of that gum tree. It's spectacular, isn't it? I think that that's a river gum, but I am not 100% certain because this is not a part of Australia that I'm from. Not that I'm an expert in the gum trees from where I'm from, but I'm a little bit more familiar. But I do think that's a river gum, and it is absolutely spectacular, isn't it? So I am actually today in the Barossa Valley, just about an hour and a half north of Adelaide. This area here is renowned around the world for its grape growing, as a grape growing region and a wine producing region, and it has it has a great reputation in those areas. But it is a beautiful space to be in, and I was thinking today that what I wanted to talk about was something I was having a conversation with a friend about a little while ago, and it's the idea of addictions. There are many issues at play when you're dealing with addictions, and so what I'm saying today, I don't want to minimize people's struggles or reduce the ideas down to, or the struggle down to, some simple ideas, but there are some pieces of the struggle with addictions that are directly reflected in the journey that is the walk in the garden. We become addicted to things because they offer us the opportunity, to place some control over the world around us. They have the capacity to distort our reality from something that is difficult to deal with to something that is either manageable or actually distorted in terms of our perception of it. So there's a wide variety of addictions. You can very often easily think of chemical addictions in this context, but there are many types of addictive behaviours that grip people, and in all of them there is clearly the issue of the struggle with personal pain and a personal sense of worthlessness. And for that reason, to not talk about how addictions impact us in the journey in the garden is probably to miss something that's pretty important. Throughout this journey in the garden, I have been referencing the desire that we have to feel valuable against our innate internal struggle with our own sense of worthlessness. And I've always claimed that love is the solution to our struggle with worthlessness. That if love and worth are two sides of the same coin, then worthlessness, the struggle of worthlessness, is actually a reflection of our lack of a sense of appropriated love. And it is for that reason that I have the kookaburras. How cool is that? It is for that reason that I often reference God's love in this conversation. God's love, if it is impacting on our lives, directly responds to our struggle with worthlessness. But an addiction is our way of managing our sense of worthlessness. They might be some kind of a chemical addiction that is designed to medicate or deaden our sense of pain. Or it might be an addiction like workaholism, where we feel like we're always got to be doing something profitable in order to feel valuable. And so we become driven in that environment. And it's actually about us trying to control our environment. Well, all forms of addiction offer us the illusion that we are seeking to be in control of our own world and our own environment. And it's important to keep that in mind. Look at this. It's wattle. It's beautiful, isn't it? Absolutely gorgeous. The important thing to recognize is that addictive behavior is our attempt to manage our shame, and a lot of times actually things that are on the surface seemingly good things, like working hard. Even it can even manifest itself in the lives of people that live to care for other people, to share their lives with other people. They're dominated by the need to feel valuable in that environment, and so they cannot get enough of giving themselves away. And so it can take on the function of an addiction, just doing good things. The reality is that what we're talking about here is what we put in place to manage our need for acceptance, or the pain of our own sense of worthlessness, or our need to not focus on the reality on which we're living. That's the context in which addictions happen. But at the core is that struggle that we have with shame. And so it's important, I think, to recognize that while there's many very good things that can be done to help a person deal with addictive behavior in their life, I think it's important to recognize that if we don't deal with the central issue, the core issue of our human struggle, then even if we deal with one addiction, we may end up replacing it with just some other more acceptable form of addictive behavior. What we need is to actually address that deepest need, the deepest issue of worthlessness in our lives and our need for love. And so as we walk in this garden, as we journey in the garden, what we are endeavoring to discover is the truth that there is a space in this world in which we feel loved and valued and whole and complete. And the invitation of this journey has been an invitation to walk together to discover that place. And it is in the place of love. It is in the place of love being communicated as a valuing dynamic that touches our lives. And when we think about God's love, for those that have faith and receive God's love, in actual fact, what has to happen at the core of that process is the reality that that love says to us that we are valuable, that even faith doesn't take upon itself the the dynamic of being an addictive behavior in order for us to use that to address our own struggle, and it can. There's only one true dynamic of faith that is genuinely valuable, and that is the kind of of faith discovered in the midst of a relationship with a God of love that reaches into our brokenness and reveals our worth to us through the mechanism of God's love. And the ultimate goal of the journey in the garden, the walk in the garden, is to that space, to that place of beauty, to that place of worth and value, and that kind of space that's reflected in this incredibly and beautiful environment. So thanks once again for being with me in the walk in the garden. I hope that maybe this video has triggered some thoughts for you, and you could think about maybe some of the things that are happening in your life that maybe you use to control or shift the perspective of your perspective on your struggles and your difficulties. But certainly the invitation continues to be there to walk together to discover that place of beauty, of love, of worth, and of embrace. So until next week, keep walking in your garden.